Welcome back to part 3 of chapter 7. This part takes us into the contrast. What happens when we live in coherence and what happens when we don't? Dr. Joe outlines the scientifically proven benefits of living in elevated heart based emotions like compassion, appreciation, and gratitude. But he also explains what chronic stress does to the body. So it creates dissonance between the heart and the brain. It weakens our immune system and it drains us of our vital energy. If you've ever felt stuck in cycles of burnout, exhaustion, or overdrive, this part will help you to understand why. And more importantly, how to shift it. Let's get into the benefits of heart coherence. When we choose to cultivate the experience and I'm sorry, when we choose to cultivate and experience elevated emotions and the coherent signal of those elevated emotions reaches the brain, if the amplitude of the signal is high enough, chemicals equal to those feelings and emotions are released into the body. We call this a feeling, and positive feelings like this make us feel lighter and freer. In other words, the energy of your whole state of being is elevated. If you are feeling an elevated sense of well being in a safe environment, the energy of those feelings sets in motion a cascade of at least 1,400 biochemical changes in the body that promote growth and repair. Instead of drawing from the invisible field of energy around your body to transform energy into chemistry, now you're adding to and expanding that field, resulting in a new expression of chemistry reflective of the change in energy. How? If the first three energy centers of the body are energy consumers, when we are out of balance, the heart is an energy expander. And when you rest your attention in your heart to create and sustain elevated emotions, that coherent energy causes your heart to beat like a drum. It's that coherent rhythmic beating that creates a measurable magnetic field around your heart and thus your body. Just like the focused beat of a drum that produces a measurable sound wave, the stronger the coherent rhythm of the heart, the more expanded your field becomes. When you are feeling hurt, anger, stress, jealousy, rage, competition, or frustration, on the other hand, the signal from the heart to the brain becomes incoherent. And this triggers the release of approximately 1,200 chemicals into the body, equal to those feelings. The chemical dump lasts approximately 90 seconds to 2 minutes. In the short term, these stressful feelings are not that harmful. In fact, if they're resolved, they improve your resilience. However, the long term effects of this unresolved survival emotions put the entire body into a state of incoherence, making you vulnerable to stress related health challenges. These survival emotions draw from the field around your body, causing you to feel separate and materialistic because you're putting most of your focus and attention on matter, your body, the environment, time, and of course, the source of your problems. Among HMI's most significant findings is that what we feel on a minute to minute, second to second basis influences the heart, and that our feelings and emotions are the key aspect of unlocking heart intelligence. Because feelings and emotions are energies that emit powerful magnetic fields, the stronger the elevated feelings, the stronger the magnetic field. In fact, the heart produces the strongest magnetic field in the body, 5,000 times greater in strength than the field produced by the brain. Place your finger on your wrist and feel your pulse. That pulse is a wave of energy called the blood pressure wave, and it travels through your entire body, influencing everything, including brain function. Not only does the heart's magnetic pulse reverberate through every cell of the body, but it also produces a field around your body that can be measured up to 8 to 10 feet away using a sensitive detector called a magnetometer. Magnetometer. When you activate the heart by calling up elevated emotions, you are not only broadcasting that energy to every cell, you're also radiating those feelings out into space. This is where the heart moves beyond biology and into physics. Using encephalograms, scientists at HMI Laboratory discovered that when the heart goes into coherence, the brain waves entrain with the heart's rhythm at a frequency of 0.10 hertz. And also, that synchronization between the heart and brain is increased when the subject is in heart coherent state. The heart coherent frequency of 0.10 hertz has been shown to be a state of optimal performance associated with increased access to our deeper intuition and internal guidance. Once the analytical mind is out of the way, the individual can move down the ladder of consciousness from alpha to theta to delta brainwaves, the state in which restorative functions of the body take place. Coincidentally, we often see our students reporting profound mystical experiences. Sorry. Profound mystical experiences in deep delta around zero point 0.9 to zero point 0.10 hertz. Zero point 0.9 hertz is just a hundredth of a cycle per second off reported optimal coherence. While their hearts are in very coherent states. However, the amplitude of energy produced by the heart increases the level of energy in the brain, in some cases more than 50 to 300 times the normal level or more. Supporting evidence of heart brain coherence was further demonstrated by a series of experiments performed by Gary Schwartz, PhD, and his colleagues at the University of Arizona. In their experiments, they found inexplicable communications between the heart and the brain that made no sense via neurological or other established communication pathways. The discovery established the fact that energetic interactions between the heart and the brain exist through electromagnetic fields. Both examples point to the fact that when we focus our attention on our heart and emotions, the heart's beating acts as an amplifier. This increases the synchronization between our hearts and our brains and creates coherence not only in the physical organs, but also the electromagnetic field surrounding the body. Also noteworthy is that right behind the breastbone sits a small gland called the thymus, which has an intimate connection with the heart center. As one of the main organs of the immune system, the thymus serves as a vital role in the promotion of T cells, which defend the body from pathogens such as bacteria and viruses. The thymus gland functions optimally up to the onset of puberty, but it begins to shrink as we get older because of natural decreases in the production of human growth hormone. As with many vital organs, the thymus is also prone to the negative effects of long term stress. When we're living in emergency mode for extended periods of time and diminish our vital energy field, all of our energy is directed outward to protect us from external threats, leaving little energy to protect us from internal threats. Eventually, this leads to dysfunction of the immune system. It makes sense then that as the heart center becomes activated with energy by mobilizing the parasympathetic nervous system for growth and repair, the thymus gland should become more active as well, because now we're adding energy in that gland. Therefore, the thymus gland should also benefit from the practice of sustaining coherence within the body, aiding in the support of the overall vitality of our immune system and long term health. You learned earlier in this book that in my own independent studies, when our students were able to feel the sustained gratitude and other elevated emotions for a total of 15 to 20 minutes per day for 4 days, the energy of the emotions signaled the immune cell genes to make protein called immunoglobulin A. The significant increase in IgA is a perfect example of one of the many positive cascading effects of heart coherence. What all of this boils down to is that the quality of our heart's rhythm has consequences for our overall health. If the heart beats in harmonious rhythms, its efficiency reduces stress and other systems of the body, maximizes our energy, and creates states whereby we thrive mentally, emotionally, and physically. If there is disharmony in our heart rhythms, the opposite is true. This incoherence leaves us with less energy available for healing and for maintaining health and long term building projects, creating unrest within our internal states and putting increased stress on our heart and other organs. Heart attacks and heart disease, for example, occur when the body has been under stress for extended periods of time. When we intentionally choose elevated emotions, however, Focusing less on disharmony and more on gratitude, our bodies respond positively and we enjoy improved health. So, again, it's not woo woo magic that people in Dr. Joe's community are healing from the inhealable, incurable, chronic diseases. They are creating homeostasis in their bodies on purpose by leaning into brain and heart coherence and living in a way that allows more harmony to reside within their bodies in this entire ecosystem known as our entire body. So we're not existing in parts. We have illnesses that come up and we get doctors to treat us in parts, but they don't even fully understand that this is an entire ecosystem that works together. When one thing is off, it throws off other things. So you could fix something that's happening in the kidneys, but if you don't deal with the source of the imbalance, it will lead to other complications. And this is why our healthcare field as it stands is not really in the business of curing anything. It's just treating symptoms, and they don't fully understand what's happening. Anyways, the next time you use an elevated emotion to tune into your future and embrace those feelings before the event unfolds and feel gratitude that the event has already occurred, just know that the worst thing that can probably happen is that you start to begin to heal. Again, this is why people are healing. People think that we're just talking about manifestation, or when I bring up teachers like Abraham Hicks or Neville Goddard. Yes, they're teaching these things, but even they don't even fully understand the human anatomy, our bodies, and how they work. They're just talking about the frequencies and thoughts, and rarely do they even touch on emotions. But Joe is teaching us the physiological ramifications of understanding emotions and its effects on our bodies. And obviously, our emotions are tied to our thoughts. So, this thought emotion loop continues, and it has an effect on our body, our homeostasis, our heart rate, and all the things. And if we don't have a body that's well enough, the quality of our lives won't be great anyway. So, regardless of what material things we can manifest, we really need to get a hold of this chapter. All right, the next section is the effects of chronic stress, and this is why. When we live in a constant state of stress, our heart center becomes incoherent, and this stifles our ability to create. In response to chaotic heart rhythms, the brain becomes very disintegrated and incoherent. And that incoherence is reflected in the two branches of the ANS. If the parasympathetic system is the brake and the sympathetic system is the accelerator, when they are working in opposition, your body is receiving a message that's akin to stepping on the gas while your foot is on the brake. If you've ever done that in a car, baby, that is chaotic. Don't try it, but try it. So you'll see how chaotic it is. And if you're doing this to your body, this is what you're doing to your body. He says, it doesn't take a significant amount of automotive knowledge to understand the ramifications of these opposing forces. We wear out the brakes and put stress on the drivetrain, while the resistance wastes energy and reduces fuel efficiency. Eventually, this habituation of stress wears down the body so much that it eliminates our ability to repair and maintain health, depleting our vitality and resilience. If resilience is based on our efficient energy management, you may feel completely drained, out of sorts, and perhaps sick while under the influence of chronic stress. The more addicted we become to these states of stress, the less likely we are to open our hearts, to go within, and consciously create heart coherence. An experience I had at my home in a rural area of Washington state serves as a good example. One November evening, I came home from work, parked my car as I always did, and began walking down the 40-yard path to my house. It was pitch black. About 30 yards from my door, off to my right, I heard an ominous growl coming from behind some very large rocks. Immediately, I narrowed my focus on matter, something, and found myself thinking, what could be lurking in the darkness? I began searching my mind and then my environment for knowns from my past memory bank in order to predict my future. Could it be one of my dogs? I wondered. I started calling out their names, but there was no response. As I took a few more steps, the growling became louder. Without my having to think about mobilizing the energy in my body, the hair on my back on the back of my neck stood up, my heart rate and respiratory rate increased, and my senses became heightened in preparation for fight or flight. I took out my cell phone and turned on the flashlight to narrow my focus on the possible threat, but I still couldn't see what was making the noise. From the darkness, the growling continued. I slowly backed up and finally fled to my barn where my ranch hands were putting away the horses for the night. We grabbed our guns and flashlights and returned to the scene just in time to see a cougar and her cub scurrying away through the bushes. Ooh. You can probably gather from this story that a highly stressful situation like this is not the time to open your heart and trust the unknown. It's not a time to take your attention off things in your outer material world to focus on a new possibility in your mind. It's time to run, hide, or fight. But if you are perpetually hooked into the fight or flight state, even if there's no cougar in the bushes, you will be less likely to want to close your eyes and go within because you have to keep your attention on the perceived threat outside of you. No new information can enter your nervous system that is not equal to or relevant to the emotions that you are experiencing. So you can't program your body for a new destiny. So it makes sense that the more you live addicted to the stress hormones in your normal life, the less likely you are to want to create, to meditate, or to open your heart and be vulnerable. And you weren't meant to live in chronic stress. You were meant to live in creative coherence. The world may reward hustle, but your nervous system rewards peace. And that peace begins in your heart. Let this part be your permission to slow down, soften, and return to your center, or else. This concludes part 3. I'll see you in part 4.